All right. Well, I just want to welcome everyone here. We are going to talk about credit as it relates to business and personal credit. Hopefully, we'll give you some tips and tricks. I know that this topic can sometimes feel a little overwhelming and daunting, so hopefully, I'm going to give you some good general information that you can take with you and apply right away. So please know that I have Denise here today and Karen Wilson is here as well. So if you have questions, feel free to jump in the chat. They'll be helping with that. And don't hesitate to come off mute and stop me if you have questions. That's what I'm here for. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and do what seems to be my biggest hurdle with these, and that is sharing my screen correctly. So I'm going to try to do that first and hopefully first try. And we'll go from there. Can you see my screen? Okay, good.
Yep.
All right. So, as I said, we are here for credit consulting basics for small business owners. We're here from SBC Business Consulting, working on behalf of the NBC or the SBDC in Nevada. And we're excited to be here. We are providing SSBCI technical assistance through our organization for all of you. So, at the end of this presentation, in the event that you want to have more individualized attention, we will have a QR code that you'll be able to sign up for consultant face-to-face consulting time for credit or other things. So just want to let you know that that is coming at the end of the presentation and we will get started. So my name is Darlene Rose Schultz. I have worked with SBC Business Consulting for a little over 5 years. I work with business planning, work with marketing, and I also work with credit consulting. So I am here to help with you for any of your needs, and excited to be a part of this. SBC Consulting provides these services with many different consultants, all of which have owned their own businesses, understand what it feels like to be a small business owner, and we're here to help. So doing this every day, we're assisting small businesses. So what are we covering today and what are our goals? Like I said at the beginning of this can sometimes feel like a heavy topic, so I don't want it to be heavy. I want you to go away and feel pretty confident about just some basics with credit. So we're going to talk about breaking down how credit reports, what they are, where you can find them, how they're scored, how that affects you. We're going to talk about credit profiles and how we can improve them over time and the expectations for that time, and give you some practical steps that if you choose to leave this call today and get started, you'll have some action items to begin with, should you choose to do that. So what are our goals? We want to talk about the difference between personal credit and small business credit or business credit and how they tend to overlap, especially at the beginning, and what that means for you as a business owner. I want you to feel confident about looking at your credit report and what some of those things mean on it, and also how you can see if there are issues with your credit report and how you might want to or you can dispute them, or you can just see where you're at with them and really get confident with understanding what you're looking at. We want to talk about the actions that we can do to increase credit if possible. There are things we can do as individuals. It's not being done to us necessarily. We can act on our behalf. And so I'm going to go through some of those. And then we'll talk about what is realistic, what is the process, and how long it takes sometimes to do those things. And again, don't hesitate to jump off and ask me a question if you have any. All right, so why does credit matter to a small business owner? Well, first and foremost, just like it matters with our personal credit, your credit impacts your ability to get loans through the SBA or other ways, bank loans. It impacts how much those loans cost. So over time, depending on what your credit is, perhaps you are eligible for one, but oh, I'm sorry, is there a question? If you're not on mute, if you'd mute, that'd be great. So also it will affect how much it costs to borrow the money. So it affects interest rates. It affects how long you'll have to pay things off. It can also have impact on your actual insurance premiums, depending on what your credit score is, and your relationship with your vendors. So with better credit scores, oftentimes you'll be in a situation to have better terms with them. Maybe they'll give you a little longer to pay as you prove yourself, etc. And then when it's time, if it ever is time with the business that you're working to find some space, commercial leases, or even, obviously purchasing something, you can be impacted by your credit. Karen, did you have something?
Yeah, we have a question in the chat from Sadia asking if her LLC is her personal credit in the business credit. Are those things the same? With the LLC, is my personal credit the same thing as my business credit? Do you
We're going
mind?
to talk about that a little more here in a bit, but
Okay.
yes, yes and no. So it's all intertwined, especially at the very beginning of the process. As you get further along, and you've established some business credit, then sometimes the business credit will go ahead of your personal. I think it is safe to say that keeping both of them strong is going to be your best bet overall. Um, does that answer your question, Sadia? Okay.
Yes, she's good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And so in talking about how your credit affects you, we talked about all the different ways, whether you can get a loan, how much it'll cost to purchase, to borrow the money, etc. An example is to understand that a person maybe with a 580 credit is going to probably have higher borrowing costs overall than someone with, say, for instance, a 720 score. So we'll go over more of how that works and what that all means. So understanding our scores. Um, Score ranges between 300 and 850. Those can be found throughout different reports. Your FICO score is often used by lenders. Your Vantage score is often used by also banks and credit monitoring services. So two different things. And the way these two organizations look at your credit is dependent on how the way they weigh your credit is dependent on what they are looking at. So for instance, FICO tends to look at the number, but also what's behind the number, the different credit score factors, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And Vantage Score has the same thing. They might look at the number, but they're also really looking at what's building that number. So the key credit score factors that are being looked at by both organizations are going to be your payment history being the biggest portion of what they're looking at. So are you making your payments on time, consistently, and is your credit report reflecting that? That's usually about 35% of your score. So it's a very big and important part to make sure that you are on schedule and paying your bills. Credit utilization is right behind that and as like 30%. So basically and it's good that it's 30% because that's the number that we want to stay under. Basically what it's saying is you have X amount of dollars in credit available to you. You want to make sure that you are 30% or below for the highest possible score of utilizing that credit. So that's a very important piece and one that you can take care of pretty quickly, because if you're able to look at your credit report and see that you're 40% on one card, maybe you're going to start working to get that under 30%. So that's kind of a nice benchmark to look at and something that you can do pretty easily. In addition to that, they look at your length of history, credit history. They look at your credit mix, and then also those hard inquiries that we see whenever you apply for credit. I shouldn't say whenever. I mean, sometimes they say it's not going to be a hard inquiry, but anytime there's a hard inquiry, that does ding your credit. It doesn't last forever and it will bounce back up, but it does have impact. So it's something to think about before you apply for that credit card that you may or may not really need. Make sure that it's something you really do need, because it can affect you ultimately overall on your credit, your score. So we're going to get into how we can improve credit over time, but I think it's important that we note that it is a process. It takes time. And I would love more than anything to be able to send you on your way today with some action items and tell you that you're going to see a difference right away. And that's not necessarily the case. So when we think of a typical timeline, first of all, we need to know that most of our creditors tend to report to the credit bureaus about once a month. They have different timing that they do that. So you might get, if you start really monitoring, you might start to get the patterns of which credit reports to which credit card or loan that you have reports to what bureau when. But just know that on average, it's about every month. So at least between each reporting time, you probably aren't going to see much of a difference. In addition, it takes about 30 to 45 days for a correction to for a reporting error. So when we talk about disputing here in a little bit, it's not a quick process. You have to go through and send the information you need to send them. They have to review it, and it takes about 30 to 45 days. In addition, that consistent on-time payments and lowering utilization that we talked about or just a few minutes ago, that can take about 2 to 3 months of being consistent with those items to see a difference in your score. But 2 to 3 months is going to come no matter what. So how great it would be if in 2 to 3 months you're seeing an increase in your credit score just from being consistent. And then 6 to 12 months is what it usually is when you establish positive payment patterns and improved credit mix. So in conclusion, I mean, it's going to take some time. We're going to have to address these inaccuracies, then we're going to have to be patient and see what happens as we go. So when you look at your credit report, which we're going to talk about pulling here in a few minutes, there are different sections of a credit report that you'll look at. The first one is obviously who you are. When you go through looking at your credit report, make sure that everything is correct. Your personal information is correct. Your name is spelled correctly. Your address is correct. All of the information that you know off the top of your head, make sure that is correct. Because if it is not, then that is something that can be disputed and discussed with your creditor. You want to look through the next section, which is your account history. So there you're going to see the different accounts that you have out there. Are they accurate? Do you see that the amounts that you owe and you know you owe, is that accurate on what you're seeing in your report? Are there any on there that seem to be existing and still need to be maybe addressed because there should be done? They shouldn't be on your report anymore. You want to look at your payment activity because, like I said, every month they're going to report. So if you know that you paid on time a particular account every time and you're seeing that maybe something says it's late, that's something that can be disputed and discussed with your creditor. So you want to check that. Check your credit limits and balances. Are they accurate? Is the credit limit that you expect on this Visa what you expect, or has it changed in some way? Is that something we need to look at and address? Are your balances right? Is it reporting more than you actually owe? And then you want to check, are there collections and charge-offs? There might be something on there that you don't know about. So you definitely want to address that. Reach out to those creditors that are involved with that and find out what you need to know for those purposes. And public records, if applicable, you might find some things on there that you just want to make sure everything is accurate. That's your goal at the beginning. When you pull your reports, you want to make sure that you're looking at them for accuracy. And just for the definition purposes, if there's a charge off, that is when a creditor takes your loan, doesn't expect you to pay it, but they charge it off. That's not necessarily, it's positive because you're not going to pay it, but it can definitely affect your credit. So it's for non-payment. It's they're done chasing and they've charged off at that point. So that's what you'll see if it says charge off. Any questions at this point? You
Darlene,
are, yes.
we do have a couple questions in the chat. One of them is asking about the DUNS number, which I don't know if you're talking more about that later on.
We are. Yes,
okay,
we'll be talking about that in just a bit.
We'll cover that in just a second. And then the other question in here is asking about the term credit mix and what that means. Do you want to cover that, or is that covered later as well?
No, we can talk about that. So that's the different kinds of credit that you have on your credit report. Sometimes you might have some loans on there. You might have some credit cards on there. Different things that make up your credit history is your credit mix.
Does that answer everyone's question? I think so. So if you have another one, just put it in the chat. Thank you.
Okay. So we are all entitled to gaining access to our credit reports. It used to be that was a one-time a year thing and you got it for free then. But now you can get a free credit report, believe it or not, weekly if you choose to do that. From annualcreditreport.com. You go there, you put your information in, and you can request your report. You can do that in other places as well, but this one is nice because it does pull Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So you'll be able to see all of the different reporting agencies are the major ones on your report, and you can compare. It's nice because it's laid out in a way that you can compare each account. So you can see what each is reporting. Sometimes you might find discrepancies. So again, it's a good place to look for accuracy. It is free. I can't say that enough. So there are places you can go, I'm sure, and pay for your credit report. You don't need to do that. So if it's asking you for money, there's other options out there. An annual credit report would be one. Um, yeah, and like I said, it's important to compare the three that are actually presented for you on that report. Another great thing to do after you have your report, if you choose to do so, is to set up credit monitoring. That is something that you cannot do through the annual reports website where you actually get your report. They don't have that as an option, but there are some that are out there that you can. So this is going to be a reporting service that's going to notify you if there's a change, notify you if there's something that you need to see with your credit. There are some free services out there. So we've all heard of Credit Karma. Equa, let me make sure I'm right about this. Equifax is one that will do it for free, as well as TransUnion. So you do have those options that you can do some monitoring for free through them if you choose to do so. But it is nice because if you're not checking your report all the time, it will notify you if you need to go in there and look. And then we talked about what a hard inquiry is, and that's when you're applying for credit and it hits your credit report. It can have some, at least for a minute, it can ding you. It does pop back up, but it is something that is impacting. So when you go to apply for credit, make sure that you are applying for something that you know you need. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what we do if we're finding errors on the report. So anytime that you are looking through your credit reports and you are feeling like there's something that needs to be addressed, you want to make sure that you have a tracking system in place. I often suggest people set up a spreadsheet. That's usually the easiest way, or a nice notebook and pen and paper also works just fine. But when you're finding, or if you're finding problems, you want to make sure that you have a block on this spreadsheet or on your notebook that says, this is the account that I'm concerned about. This is what I think is inaccurate. And then what are you going to do after that? When did you find it? Who are you notifying? When did you notify them? What was the result of that notification? So that you can keep good records as to who you need to follow up with next. Because again, it goes back to the fact that it does take some time to get through the process. And you want to make sure you know who you spoke to, who you wrote to, when you did that, and what the outcome was so that you can follow up. So definitely want to make sure that you are keeping good documentation through this whole process. And I would suggest you start at the beginning of your credit review, that you have something in place, some system in place. Okay, so filing disputes. That's what we're going to talk about here in a minute and what that means. So this is when we need to, we find something on our report is inaccurate. Our name is wrong. This is an account we never opened. It was not authorized for us to do, etc. So that's when you're going to try and find as much documentation that's going to prove your point and gather that. You can submit disputes on, oh, I'm sorry, do you have a question?
There is a question about credit freezing and when they freeze their credit through the credit card because of a credit card being stolen, does that expire? Do you know the answer to that one?
I don't know the answer to that one. I am not sure.
I believe the answer to this, and this is a good question for the organization that you lock the credit with, just so you know, but I believe it does not expire until you unlock the credit yourself. Let me see who asked this question. Oh, it's Sadia. If you did lock it through an organization, then you would probably want to contact them to get it unlocked. I do know that I think that has to be initiated by you to unlock that credit. But that would be a good one to check into. Darlene and I can check into it and verify that
Yeah.
and send you an email. I think Sadia, we have your information. So
Yeah, I'd be happy to do
yep,
that. That's the question I hadn't had before, so it's good for me to find that out. I will see
yep.
what I can do. Um, okay, so filing disputes, yes, we're going to that is something that you can actually do through the different reporting agencies on the actual line that you're seeing the account, the discrepancy. There is a button that you can fill out the dispute request and you can usually attach documents and explain. So again, just make sure that if you're doing it that way, that's perfect. You want to keep track of what you've done and who you've spoken with. And then there are other ways as well. I mean, you can go directly to the credit card or the lender or whomever it is that you are disputing. You can go and find them on their website. There's almost always a place that you can go through their portal, so to speak, for disputes. So you can handle it different ways. Ultimately, though, just make sure you're keeping track of what you did. That's the most important thing, so you can come back to it. Um, Important to note about disputes. The only time you can dispute something is if there's actually an inaccuracy. If it's simply that you've fallen behind and this is something that you know, and they're reporting basically the truth, that's not something you can dispute, so to speak. So make sure that it is something that it is really not on your end, it is on their end that you want to question. There are also things called goodwill adjustments. Now, the important thing to state here is it is not a guarantee, but if you are falling behind on your bills and you just need a helping hand, you need some help with interest, you need somebody to just maybe say, if I pay the next 5 months on time, you'll take that bad mark off. That's something to have a conversation with your creditor, and they do exist. You can simply say, I need a goodwill adjustment. I've never asked for one before. This is my circumstances. Can you help me? Again, it's no guarantee that they're going to say yes to that, but there are organizations that will say yes to that. So whether rather than fall farther behind and see your score drop even faster, have that conversation with them and see if you can't just extend your hand and ask them for help. They often will. They will listen to what you have to say and do their best to help if they can. When you're submitting a goodwill request, I don't believe you can do that on the actual agency site. So that is going to be something where you'll have to reach out to the individual creditor, take some time to put together a nice document with all the information, explaining the situation. It's also even best to suggest a resolve. So like I said, if I'm able to
Set timer for 10 minutes.
pay my bills for 3 months straight, can you help me with this? So they might counter your resolve request, but at least you've shown in good faith, this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm going to do to prove to you that I can have this removed. So something to think about. In addition to disputing inaccuracies, requesting goodwill adjustments, there is something called a medical hardship strategy. And again, it's important to note these are not guaranteed. But if were in a situation, you had a medical issue, you had to have surgery unexpectedly, you became ill, something has occurred that has caused you to fall behind on payments, there is an option to reach out again to the individual lenders or credit cards or whomever it is you want to talk with and request a medical hardship. That is something that you would need to provide documentation for. Again, provide a clear, I'm in a better situation now and I need to do X, Y, and Z. And if I do X, Y, and Z, can you help me with, having these removed off the credit report or what have you? I think the most important thing that I'm saying over and over again is if you feel that you see something on your credit report that you need that is impacting you in a negative way, reach out, have conversations, try to fix the problem. It is actually the best move rather than just kind of ignoring it or spinning your wheels. Sometimes it's just better to ask for help, and oftentimes they can do that. But sometimes, and I can say from personal experience, sometimes life just lifes. And sometimes we get behind on things and it's just something that there's nothing medical, there's nothing disputable. It's just something that happened in life and we need to figure out a way to get out of the hole. So in that way, and there is no way that you can find something in a credit report that just needs to be addressed outside of just doing something yourself. If you find that that's where you're at, then it's time to figure out ways to address the problems. So two major ways that you can address the problems are there, and maybe you've all heard of these. There's debt payoff methods. There's one that is the debt snowball. And that's when you look through your whole credit and you pick the smallest balance. You pay everybody else their minimum and you throw anything left that you have at that balance and you have that one resolved. And then you do that the next time with the next smallest balance until you start to see a difference. The other method is to look at your credit and determine which has the highest interest balance, the highest entrance, and pay those first. So again, figure out what my budget is for credit, pay the minimums on all the others, and then the one that has the highest interest rate, attack that with as much of the balance of what I have for my budget as possible until you start seeing those dwindle. Another thing to do, obviously, we talked about this, limit new credit applications, just pay what you have, work through with what you have, obviously lower outstanding balances, which is what we're talking about with the debt payoff methods. Do your very best to be consistent on time, make calendar dings on your phone that tell you I have to make this payment today so that you can show consistency. There are debt payment strategies that can be implemented that you can find online. Those are options too. But the snowball and the avalanche have proved very positive for people. So that might be something to look into. Also important to do is to keep track of if there are any charge-offs that are accurate. You may be able to reach out to people, to the creditor that charged off, and have a time to negotiate and say, you charged it off, but I'm willing and able to pay X, Y, and Z. Can I do that? And then you take it off as a charge off so that it's not negatively impacting the credit. Again, it's having a conversation. If you find that you have lines that are in collections, that means that your debt was transferred to someone else. So you need to address the collection agency first, talk to them, and see what needs to be done to get a resolve. Always remember, again, have written communication, have all these things that you have conversations with, have in writing or take really good notes so that you make sure that you know who you've had conversations with and what the result was. And there are tools out there for rebuilding credit if you find that that's your next thing, that don't involve necessarily going out and getting another credit card, although that can be a strategy for some people. But the other options would be doing a secured credit card. So you can work with agents, with places that you put a $500 deposit down and you have a $500 credit. So now you're able to use that $500 towards purchases and you pay that bill every month on time and you build that consistency, and that ultimately will build your credit. That is true, but there are some credit builder loans out there. One, again, I'm not recommending anything. I'm just telling you one that I know of. I think is called Self. So that's one that you would put a deposit down as sort of a loan, make payments. You're actually making giving yourself a loan, because then you're making consistent payments every month. They're reporting to the credit reporting agencies, and then that's helping your credit. And the last one of the other credit rebuilding tools that we're going to mention is the Experian Boost. That's an interesting thing, and I don't know that it's available everywhere, but if you sign up with them, you can sign up, for instance, your rent payments, your utility payments, your phone bill, as whatever they'll allow you to do. And then it reports to the credit bureaus that you're paying those things that you have to pay every month on time, no matter what. Anyway, it reports, and it does help your credit. So that is an option. What I don't know about the Experian Boost off the top of my head is if it costs to do. I think it may, but it is something to look into. All right. So now we'll get into the business credit basics. But before we do that, any questions?
No questions in the chat at this point.
Okay, perfect. All right. So business credit is separate from personal credit. As I stated before, especially when you first starting out in business, your personal credit is the main source of credit for your business. Even after you're established, it is quite possible that you will need to do a personal guarantee. It's just typically the way it works. However, you do have ways to build your business credit that maybe and hopefully at some point, if that's what you choose to do, will push forward ahead of your personal credit when looking for loans, additional credit cards, etc. So the way that we do that, the way we establish business credit is, first of all, have your EIN, because that can be related to your business credit. If you're doing business, you have an EIN. A note to that, if you haven't done business yet or you don't have your EIN yet, that is also something that is free to get. So if you land on a website to get your EIN and it's not free, you're on the wrong website, and make sure that you're on the IRS website to get your EIN. That's just a side note. Other ways that you establish your business credit through a business bank account. You'll want to establish that. It's always important to have separate account from personal, business account from personal anyway. Do that, have that in place, and your business bank account will help to start establish that credit. Obviously, a business credit card in the business's name. You will probably sign that from a personal standpoint, but you can start to build that credit on its own. And then your DUNS number, that is also a way to report that they're reporting your business credit. So it's a unique identifier. It's used to track business credit activity. You can go to, it's through Duns & Bradford. You can go to their website to get signed up for that, to get started. So how do we build our business credit? Pay on time, register with the reporting agencies that you can, open reporting vendors accounts. So if you are working with vendors, see if they report. If they do, you ask them to do so. Because obviously with every good report going to the bureaus, that's going to help boost your credit. And when you ask them to do that, then you want to make sure you're paying on time and you're being very consistent. So Dun & Bradstreet, Experian Business, and Equifax Business are all reporting agencies for businesses. Again, I believe that there is some fee associated with those, but they are good to start to build that business credit faster. If you are considering an SBA or any kind of a business loan, there are things to think about. First of all, and I made a note for this and I wanted to make sure I brought this up. If you're thinking of SBA lending, and this is obviously going to vary depending on the person, but as a general rule, for an SBA general loan, they are looking at credit scores between 650 and 680 plus. If you're looking at an SBA micro loan, it's usually somewhere in the vicinity of 600 to 620 plus to get started. So that's something to note. Karen, you have something?
Yep, we have a question about the DUNS number again. One of the clients are having trouble getting a DUNS number and have in the past. Is it important for that in order to should they establish one and should he get one? And do you have any idea how, if he's having trouble, if he could get around to get that DUNS number?
Eventually, yes, I think it's important. In the meantime, if you have a credit card, a business credit card, and you're doing all these other things, that's still establishing credit. You are not the only person I've heard that said that getting the DUNS number is difficult. There are just some things that for some reason the system isn't always perfect. But what I can do if we get your name, we have your name in the chat, I can put together a little resource guide real quick and email it over to you, just from some tips and tricks to see if that helps. And if you want to tell us exactly, or you can respond back to that email and tell me exactly what difficulty you're having, maybe I can help further too.
Yeah, John, it looks like his name's John Tyler. John, at the end of this, there will be a QR code that you can request basically assistance or one-on-one consulting with someone on our team or someone with another team. If you fill out that QR code, they'll route you back around. Just make sure you tell them that you're looking for credit questions, and they should get to us as well. So yeah, the QR code at the end will be your best bet to get routed back to us.
But no, John, you're not alone. Unfortunately, it does happen, and hopefully we can find some resolve for you.
Yep. And it looks like Sadia is looking for the same thing. Sadia, if you can do the same thing at the end of this, take that QR code and just make sure you fill out the form with the SBDCs, and hopefully they'll route it back to us, and we'll take care of it from there. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so back to SBA loans and lender insights. Different kinds of loans or lenders look at different agencies for their information. So it's not a horrible idea to ask when you start vetting lenders who they are using to gain your credit information, which route they go. It might help you to know what agency or what report you're focusing on if you are trying to do some improvements. So that's not a horrible idea to do. You can know that major banks often use Experian. Credit unions tend to use Equifax or TransUnion. Alternative lenders are going to look at your business credit. They're also going to look at cash flow. But that note, it's important to state that for business lending, they're going to look at cash flow. It doesn't matter if it's a credit union or a major bank, they're still going to look at cash flow. They're going to look at a business plan. They're going to look at financial projections. So those are all important things to have in place before you go looking for lending from an SBA standpoint. But it is good to kind of guide your preparation if you know who they are going to look at, and that way you can determine what your best strategy is and making sure your credit's where it needs to be. Okay, so what do we do if we find problems and we found the inaccuracies? It's time to figure out our next step. So number one, action plan. Get your credit report, review your credit report, find the inaccuracies, submit appropriate disputes / medical requests, hardship requests, any of those, get those things ironed out. Sit down and make sure that you have a nice form letter put together. You can certainly get templates online, or again, you can use that QR code and we can help you, or you can get to someone that can help you with that. Make sure you're staying in contact with your creditors and you're keeping good notes on those conversations, and focus on lowering your utilization. So if you find that you're over 30% on most of your credit report, start working on a plan on how you're going to get that below 30%. It's important to remember that this is a process that takes a little bit of time. So just make sure that you are consistent with your payments, you're consistent with your utilization lowering. Consistency is key. It really is. It's about the turtle in the hare. This is a turtle process, and you just want to make sure you're very consistent.
I don't know. USPS, no. UPS, yes. Probably.
Okay. And then as far as other ways to kind of keep track of things, technology can be very helpful. So those credit alerts, get those on place so you'll have something dinging you and telling you that there's something you need to look at. A tracking spreadsheet like we talked about, it can be very simple. You can even go on some AI platforms and say, can you help me to create a spreadsheet that will help track credit resolution, and it can create that for you so you're ready to go. I believe in calendar reminders, and I believe in being consistent. So if you say to yourself, I know I'm going to pay my bills on the 1st and the 15th of every month, set up a calendar that says on the 1st, I know that these bills are going to be paid and I get a ding. And on the 15th, I know it's going to be this. Or if you're one of those people that pay when it's due on the days that are due, have calendar notifications telling you This visa is due on the 5th, and I need to make sure I'm reminded to pay it because consistent payments are where it's at. Task management tools, it goes right along with those calendar invites. Just if you keeping consistency is great. And if you work like I do and I need somebody to remind me, I have things set up to remind me in every aspect of my life, whether it be personal bill paying or my work tasks and when they need to be done. Consistency is best. So to make sure to use those tools. And don't forget to celebrate when things are good. It is so much easier to be consistent and stay on the goals and stay on your plan if you're telling yourself, I got that down. It was 50% utilization and now it's down to 42%. And I did that. And you need to celebrate those goals because ultimately, like I said at the beginning, time is going to pass. At least if time is passing and you're working towards your goals, when we get to that a year from now or whatever, you're going to see differences with consistency. So celebrate what you've done. Celebrate that you've paid and settled accounts. Celebrate that you have fixed an inaccurate reporting. You deserve that. This takes work, and you need to be proud of what you accomplish as you go through it. What can you do right now if you choose to do that? You could even, as within the next 7 days, you could pull a credit report. You can set up your monitoring. You can list the potential inaccuracies. You can contact one creditor, say that's going to be my goal, or you can reduce one balance if that's possible. Those are things that can be done right away towards your goal, towards your positive personal, and then ultimately your business credit. And the QR code that we discussed is right here. So if you would like to work with someone one-on-one, this is a service that is no cost to you. It's through the SSBCI Technical Assistance Help. You can go to this QR code. We're also going to be sending this. I believe that the slides will be sent out, so you'll have this link as well. But you'll just sign up give your information, and then you will be routed through the process to one of us or another agency to help you through this process. We can help with personalized and individual assistance. So we'll actually be able to, as comfortable as you are with us, to give us the information on your credit report, we can walk through that with you. We can help you to create that individualized plan. And we can also help with the drafting of the letters if we need to give you an idea of what needs to be said and how we can help with that. So we're here to assist. Please utilize this resource. It's here for you, and we look forward to working with you in the future. So anyone have any other questions for me?
I don't think so. We're getting some loves though, so that's great. We appreciate that.
Good.
Yes, well, thank you, Darlene. As she said, we are here to help you guys as much as we can. So and we will send this out to the Nevada group, who will then circulate it. So if you guys need help, if you didn't get a chance to take the picture of that, it will come around in an email here in the coming days. If you find out that you can't find that information, just contact that local Nevada SBDC, and they should be able to assist you as well. But they have a lot of great resources with that group. So make sure you reach out to them, and we're here to help if we can. I guess that's all the questions. We're probably good to go.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm not sure. Oh, I did. I was able to put the QR code in the chat. So if that helps, you have that there as well.
Perfect.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.